Everybody.
Thank you.
The bell brought on the recording. Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. Here we are with our E-Club of World Peace, where we reach around the world with each other. This is July 27th, a marvelous day, and we're just going to have a fantastic evening together. It is a joy always to come together to share our experiences and to hear. We're going to hear from wonderful Osho tonight. So more to come. So Rudy, greetings.
All right. Thanks, David. Off to a good start. It's our second Rotary meeting of the day. We'll probably have more than that, but we met with St. Petersburg this morning, had a great meeting. Was just super. Just had a great discussion and good sharing. So look forward to many more of those. But let's see, we got Sharon on with us. She started the morning with us today. Dee is holding down Illinois. Karen's next to me over here.
Hi.
Barbara's in the new Peaceful City, International City of Peace in Santa Barbara. Marilyn, how are you? See you there. Who's 499-4771? I don't know who that is. I got him muted at the moment. Carol, good to see you. Tim, great to see you. Anne is joining us. I think she might be interested in the topic tonight.
Indeed, I am.
And Andrea, great to see you. Are you in Arizona or up on the mountain here?
I'm in Arizona getting hot.
Oh, okay. Okay, Bob is on with us tonight. Bob is having his 29th birthday on Friday. Happy birthday, Bob.
29th. What a lie that is. My God.
Use a multiplier.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, we're all using multipliers.
Don't believe a word he says. My God.
The only one, Asha doesn't have to use a multiplier. She's okay. Sala, good to see you. Tom, great to see you. Warren's back with us. Good to see Warren. Jack, we haven't spoken probably in half a day or a day.
No.
David is holding down the fort. Brian is peaceful in Ojai. Catherine's down under in Tomorrowland. She just told us that 11 years from now they're going to have the Olympics down there. You know, that's a long time. Long time away. Michael was on with us this morning, and we're a little more about his experience in Russia, so that's interesting. Peter, great to see you.
Hi.
Terry is unpacking, probably. Unpacking.
Rudy, this is Dwight Zinn on 4771. I'm trying to figure out how to do it on the phone with the video.
Oh, okay. Great to have you here, Dwight.
Finally made it.
There you go. That's good.
Dwight's a new member.
Dwight's one of our new members this month. And his wife happens to be our district governor nominee for our Rotary district. So the Rotary in the family there. Paula.
Hello.
Is Paula Day?
Yes,
Great to see
I'm a
you.
guest.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're a guest to Sharon.
Yes, I am. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you for joining us. Asha, great to see you. Asha's going to be speaking here in a little bit. Greg is in his favorite comfortable chair. And let's see here. Julie is on with us. Good to see Julie. You mentioned Tim. Brenda, great to see you.
Hi, good seeing you.
And I've got somebody there that's a, see Tom Snyder, we got someone that's Excel Empower.
That is Rebecca Deng. Rebecca Deng is known to Aunt Trish, who met her in Winnipeg. Rebecca Deng was a lost girl from South Sudan who has created Excel Empowerment Center, which has achieved charitable status in Winnipeg, and they work with in the inner city doing amazing work with anyone in need.
Super. Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Dennis, great to see you. Sherry Bruckner. Hi, Sherry. Bill Timpson. Richard, this is one of his favorite topics tonight also. Adam, good to see you. Thanks for getting that material for me. Scotty,
Hey,
we've got to
Rudy,
get you,
I
we've got
got
to get you a
my,
little light on. So
yeah, I'm gonna redo this wall and get some credentials up. But thank you for the
That we're having right now. You missed
e-piece
last
pen
week,
that I
so
received in the
hoping
mail.
to get this week.
yeah.
Bye-bye.
And let's see here. We got Martin's on. Martin, good to see you. Dwight's got his, we can see Dwight now. That's good. We're picking up a few other guests in here. Arthur's on.
Hi.
Tess Fay. Good to have you with us. Chantel, great to have you on tonight with us. And sorry you weren't able to make that meeting this morning. It was pretty interesting, but you'll catch the next one, I'm sure. So this is all good. Somebody's got a little boy in his arm there. Cole, I guess. So we've got a variety of guests with us tonight, and glad that you're all with us. It's going to be a wonderful evening tonight, and we have the honor here of one of our own members speaking tonight, and she got her a bachelor law degree over in Mahatma Gandhi University in India, and then also got a master's degree over there in international human rights law.
You, Arthur.
Then,
Hey.
hold on 1 second. There we go. And then she had a variety of assignments. She was a child protection officer with the UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan, and the UN Office Special Rep to the Secretary General on Children in Armed Conflict. She's worked with Nonviolent Peace Force and the U.S. and South Sudan in capacities. Over there, an International Protection Officer to the Program Manager in South Sudan. She is a Rotary Peace Fellow. In 2018, she got her master's degree at Duke, our Peace Center in Duke, on International Development Policy. She's on our board of directors here as co-chair of our Rotary Foundation for our club. And she currently, her newest job is director of nuclearban.us, working over in Washington, D.C. area. And we're just honored to have Asha as a member of our Rotary Club and working on this very important issue over there. Asha, welcome tonight and take it away, please.
And if we can get people to mute who aren't speaking.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Rudy. And it's always a pleasure to be with my community. I always tell this, it's so great to be with you all. And thank you so much for taking your time to listen to what I have to share with you all. I think I can share my screen. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. So today I'm going to talk about civilian protection and child protection in South Sudan, where I spent almost 6 years working on civilian protection and child protection in South Sudan. And this country is very close to my heart, and the people are very close to my heart. Before going into sharing my thoughts and my experience, I really want everybody to take a couple of seconds. I mean, seconds is not enough, but a few seconds to think about what does peace mean to you. And maybe at the end of this presentation, it would be great to see your definition of peace, or what does peace means to you. Maybe you can put that in the chat box. So I just want to show you this picture. We live in a world where there is existence of peace and war, but it's in different countries. On the left side, you can see children enjoying their childhood. And on the other side, you can see a group of children forced to take arms and to be a combatant. and to fight against their own people or fight against their own community, and who doesn't have a childhood to enjoy. So that's a century, or that's a era we are living currently. So armed conflict around the world, there are 79.5 million people who are forcibly displaced around the world. And when I say forcibly displaced, they can be either a refugee, they can be either an internally displaced person, or they are a POC. It's also called POC, protection of civilians who are internally displaced within a country. And 1 in every 113 people on the earth are either an asylum seeker or an internally displaced person in the country. So this is according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, a refugee report. What's happening with my, so today, Today, I want to talk about South Sudan, a country with ongoing conflict, and the struggle for peace, story of generations who have seen only war and violence in their lifetime. I've talked to, during my 7 years of experience of working in South Sudan, talked to many of my friends in South Sudan who have only seen war and conflict. I still remember the day when I was traveling out of South Sudan to start my Rotary Peace Fellowship. A very good brother of mine dropped me in at the airport, and I said to him, "I'll come back again when, at that time this country will be peaceful." And immediately the response he gave me was, my sister, I was born in this war. My forefathers were born in this war. My kids are born in this war, and my grandkids are born in this conflict. So that is the attitude, or they don't have hope, because throughout their life they only have seen war and conflict. I don't know whether you can see my screen. Hello?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I think I lost somewhere. Yeah, I started my, going back a little bit backwards. I started my career as a lawyer, or maritime lawyer, in India. And I was practicing in India for almost 3 years as a maritime lawyer. And then I realized that that's not what I want to do with my life. So I went to study Masters in International Human Rights and Humanitarian Law. And that's the time I received a picture from my friend of mine, a picture which was taken by a famous photographer named Kevin Carter. And that picture was a child in South Sudan trying to move to a food camp, and a vulture sitting near to the child, waiting for the child to die. And this really kind of moved me, and kind of started asking myself, is this I wanted to do? Like, how can I support in conflict prevention and peace building? But since I come from a very conservative family in a southern part of India, I never ever thought I would be able to travel out of my state itself, because that was a big thing, in the society I was grown and I was living. But destiny was different. In 2010, I moved from India to Sudan without a job. It took a lot of time for me to make that decision, and I moved to Sudan in 2010. And I started working for the United Nations as a contractor. After going there, I had to wait for a couple of months to get that contractor job. It was not something I really wanted to do, but if I thought I will start with that job and then try to get another job with an NGO or with the UN. So this is the UN camp in Kadugli, which is a border of Sudan and South Sudan. It's also called the Nuba Mountain, Nubans. So this is that the UN camp. And I worked there for almost more than 1 year. And one fine morning, I woke up hearing a very loud sound. And I didn't know what exactly it was. But then later, after talking to many people, I understood that that was a bombing started in the area where we were living. So there was fighting between the Sudan armed forces and the rebel groups from South Sudan that ended up in the displacement and killing of many people. For the first time in my life, I saw the horrific impact of war and conflict on innocent civilians. Children were separated from their family. But I could not do anything much more than resolving the conflict or in peace building because it has already started. And I was the only thing that I could do at that moment was kind of supplying water and food to these internally displaced people. Later, after 21 days, because 21 days we have to stay in that camp because al-Bashir, the then president, refused permission for the humanitarians and the UN staff to move from one place to another because he didn't want the UN or the humanitarian or the human rights people to monitor and report the human rights violations that was happening in that country. So later, after 21 days, we were given permission, and I still remember on the way you could see people being moving from one place to another with wounded and children being separated from their family. Once I reached Khartoum, so we were evacuated to Khartoum, and al-Bashir kicked all of us out from the country because he didn't want any of the humanitarians or UN staff to be in the country. And he liquidated or closed the mission in that country. And one of the reasons was, of course, he didn't want the human rights violations to be documented. Second was at that time, an arrest warrant was issued against him by the ICC. So all this ended up in the moving out of the humanitarians, and that affected the innocent civilians. Who didn't have food or who didn't have shelter, who were attacked by the military. So this is one of the the bombs that was dropped in the area. And I still remember all my plates and everything which was in the kitchen just fell down and break into pieces. So that was really horrible. And I thought that was the end of once I moved out of Sudan, I thought that was the end of my humanitarian work, but destiny was different. In 2012, I moved to South Sudan, the newest country. So as I told you earlier before, the civil war between Sudan and South Sudan, or in Sudan area, has been there since 1955. But in 2005, with the engagement of international community and the other diplomats and also the civil society, there was a comprehensive peace agreement was entered into between the Sudan and the rebel group, the then rebel group, but now the National Force of the South Sudan government. So initially it was from the peace, the entering into a comprehensive agreement, and then forming of a government and state building. So that's a process of peace process. So in 2011, South Sudan decided to, as a result of the referendum, South Sudan decided to separate from Sudan and to become the newest country in the world. So in 2012, I moved to South Sudan to start working with Nonviolent Peace Force on civilian protection and peace building and conflict resolution. So this was one of the, I really enjoyed working for this organization because this is what I always wanted to do. So what is unarmed civilian protection? So now, normally we heard only about armed protection. What is the difference between armed protection and unarmed civilian protection? Unarmed civilian protection is grassroots level. So we worked, we lived and we worked within the community. Unlike the UN, we didn't have a separate accommodation or something. We were living within the community, engaging with the community on a daily basis, and also ensuring building the capacity of the community by being living with the community as their own member. And it really builds trust and relationship between people. So that is one thing, and it's multinational, which means all the staff are from different countries. We have staff from national, we did have like staff from the country, and also from other countries like India, Sri Lanka, US, Canada, and a number of countries. And the other strategy is strategic engagement with all the parties in the community. So engaging with everybody, irrespective of the differences, with the military, with police, with government, women, children, everybody is included and engaged. And non-violence is the other principle or the strategy, and non-partisanship, which is again comes under strategic engagement of engaging with everybody in a strategic way, irrespective of the differences. During my work in South Sudan, I did had a lot of opportunity to engage with community and supporting them in resolving their own problems, because primacy of local actors is very important in resolving any conflict. They know the solution. The community knows the solutions. What we as international community or civil society can do is kind of support the group, support the community in resolving their own problems. So using different strategies, I'll come to that one, using different strategies, we supported communities in resolving their own problems. One of the strategy is protective engagement. What does protective engagement means is nonviolent peace force deploy its unarmed civilian protection staff or officers across the country or the places where they have the project. And if you look into the first picture, these women are going from one place to another, either for getting food or ration or to collect firewoods. And on their way, they are raped by military or civilians. And it's very risky for them. They do not have any protection mechanisms in existence. So one of the major, attack or against the women is conflict-related sexual violence, which is sexual violence against women by armed forces, both by the rebel groups and by the armed groups and armed national force. So what we used to do was provide protective accompaniments for these women. So walk with them from one place to the other and to provide protection. So that is one thing. And the second is there are refugee camps. There is one big refugee camp in South Sudan, which was called the Ira refugee camp, which is the border of Sudan and South Sudan. Then there are ITP camps, which is internally displaced people's camp. So there are issues. They are also being attacked in this camp. So we provided protective presence and protective accompaniments in these camps. Relationship building is another important strategy used, because most of the case, whether it be in South Sudan or it be in our own community, people don't trust each other. Most of the conflicts arises because of the trust issues. We see others, we look into the differences of other people rather than looking into the commonalities of other person. So building that relationship is very important. So we engage with all the parties, all the stakeholders in the community. And for also multi-level diplomacy, which is kind of engaging with at different levels, not only at the higher level, but also at different levels. So relationship building was another strategy used for building peace in South Sudan. Okay, then the third one is capacity development or capacity building, because none of the organizations will be in a country forever and ever. So building the capacity of the people in that country is very important, and for that purpose, we provide trainings and local ownership and local ownership to the groups in South Sudan. Monitoring and reporting, which was initially not done in South Sudan, which was initially done in Philippines, but in South Sudan, I left the organization, but now I know that in South Sudan, Nonviolent Peace Force is doing monitoring and monitoring. Monitoring is because in South Sudan there's a peace agreement in existence, and by monitoring the unarmed civilian protection officers ensure that the ceasefire is in existence, and there is early warning and early response mechanisms in place, and there is rumor control, because most of the time in conflict situation, rumors can lead to escalate more conflicts. So rumor control is very important, and that is what we do in South Sudan and in other countries. Now, as I told you earlier, I moved to South Sudan in 2012 and started working on conflict resolution, peace building. We slowly started building, building this, supporting the government in state building, and also in conflict resolution, peace building. Suddenly in 2013, in December, conflict erupted between the rebel groups and the South Sudan current government. And that ended up in the displacement of more than I think it's 2 million people, and 10,000s were killed. So that was in 2013. I still remember I was in my room, and the executive director of the organization came, knocked at my door, and I was like, what's happening? And she just pulled me down to the floor because there was air attack happening, because there was shooting happening everywhere. And I didn't hear because I was listening to music with my earphone. And so that led to the creation of, for the first time, the UN created a protection of civilian camp inside the UN camp. So as if I had shown you earlier the picture of a UN camp, normally it is only the UN staff stays there, but after 2013, when people were attacked by the rebel groups and by as a result of the conflict between the rebel groups and the South Sudan national force, people were forced to flee from their country, and they didn't find anywhere, place to have the protection. So they went to the UN camp, and after a long conversation or after long discussions, the then SRSD opened the gate and started this protection of civilian camp inside the UN camp. And again, after 2013, everybody started working on peace building again, but the cycle of violence continued. In 2016, another conflict erupted between the rebel leader and the national force. Now, what is the impact of war and conflict on women and children? Children are being killed and maimed, recruited as child soldiers. There's sexual violence against children, attack on schools and hospitals. Children are being abducted by one tribal group, from one tribal group to the other tribal group. They're separated from their family and parents due to conflict and violence. They don't have access to food and shelter. They're traumatized for their life, throughout their life, and no access to education and health. So these are the major impact of war and conflict on children. And the UN have a separate monitoring system, which is called the 6th grave violation against children, and it comes under the international crime. So after I left Nonviolent Peace Force, I started working as a UN staff, and my major responsibility was monitoring and reporting of the 6th grave violation, which was reported to the Secretary General, and later it was discussed in the Security Council. And before that, the Secretary General name and shame. There's a process called naming and shaming of the perpetrators of this 6th grave violations. So that was with respect to these are the main impact of war and conflict on children. And when it comes to women, rape is used as a weapon of war in many of the conflict countries, not only in South Sudan, in many of the conflict countries. Gender-based violence, early and forced marriages, use sex slaves. I'm sorry to use that word. I mean, this is from another slide that I used earlier, but I stopped using the word slave. So they were sexually assaulted by armed forces and groups, hunger and human trafficking. So these are the pictures which shows, this is an IDP camp, or internally displaced people's camp inside the UN. So if you look into the first picture, during the conflict, they were trying to, people were in lines trying to protect themselves and trying to get into the UN camp to get protection. And this is another IDP camp. So there were many IDP camps in each state where people went for protection. And even during the 2016 crisis, even these IDP camps were attacked by the rebel groups. I mean, not by the rebel groups, the national force. And if I remember correctly, 4 Chinese peacekeepers were killed in that attack, and many civilians were killed during the 2016 attack. I still remember I had to stay with two of my friends, lay down in the bathroom for 3 days and 3 nights, because that was the only place where you could save your life. And there you get, even now I still don't understand why this, when they fight with each other, they take a break in the early morning, 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 a.m. And that's the time you run to the kitchen and cook food and bring everything to the bathroom and stay in the bathroom for the rest of the day. So we were in the bathroom for 3 days and 3 nights, trying to save their lives. But the thing is that I did had a roof over me, or I had a place to at least protect myself. But there were like millions of people who didn't have a roof over their head, and we could not do anything. And it was very, very very emotional. And so now, yes, there was conflict was continuing, the cycle of violence continues, but we didn't stop. Like the international community or Nonviolent Peace Force or the UN did not stop. So while working for Nonviolent Peace Force, one of the major achievements or major things that we did was, as I told you earlier, women were attacked, or women were sexually assaulted, or rape was used as a weapon of war against them. In order to protect the women, in order to support the women or build the capacity of women, we created a women's protection teams. And the women in South Sudan, I hate using the word empowering, because women are very powerful in South Sudan, not only in South Sudan, every part of the world. It's just they need that space. They just need a tool to protect themselves, or they just need the tools to how to protect themselves. So we created women's protection teams and provided with them tools for not only for their own protection, but for their community as well. So these women's protection teams, what they did was they map the risk in their own areas. They know which are the areas that's risky for them, and then they create a group, and the women go together, go as a team when they wanted to go and collect firewood or when they wanted to go and get ration. So they started doing it by themselves. And I remember, like, one time a woman was raped by a civilian, and these women protection teams, what they did was they went and stayed with these women for 2 or 3 days until she felt safe. And they also, what the other thing that we did was building a relationship between the women and the actors on the ground, including the police and military, so that they have access to the legal system also. So engaging both the women and the local actors is very important, so that they have access to the legal and the protection and the other stuff. And bridging communities across ethnic lines is another thing, because most of the time, a person from one tribe doesn't trust a tribe from another. And it's the same, I mean, if we look into Russia and US or India and Pakistan, people have a preconceived notion about the others. And to a certain extent, my experience working in conflict countries is conversation really helps in building those trust. We do have differences, but when we talk and continue that conversation, it helps in bridging those indifferences, bridging those the trust issues. So this was done with women's protection team and child protection teams that we created in South Sudan. Not only that, we also engage with the communities on the both the sides of South Sudan and Sudan. We engage with them, fix meetings with both the communities on both the sides, bring them together, and start conversations, or have ensuring conversation between the groups. So similar to women's issues, children's issues are huge in South Sudan. This is not only in South Sudan. If you look into any conflict, women and children are the most affected by war and conflict. Or throughout the world, more than 350 million children are living in areas affected by conflict. And 1 in 5 children are affected by armed conflict. That's according to Save the Children. And in 2018, 12,000 children were killed and maimed during armed conflict. This is after I left Nonviolent Peace Force. I started working for the United Nations as a child protection officer. And as I said earlier, my main role was monitoring and reporting of 6 grave violations against the children, which is committed by armed forces and groups in conflict countries. So those are the main, because this is considered as an international crime. It comes under international crime. And one of my major responsibility was making those reports and sending it to the Secretary General's office, where those reports are considered, and they compile all the reports from all the 20 countries, country situations, called country situations, because the UN Security Council mandated the UN Secretary General, Special Representative to the Secretary General on Children and Armed Conflict, to monitor and report on 6 grave violations. And based on these 6 grave violations, the Security Council, the Secretary General, name and shame the perpetrators, and also impose economic and other sanctions on the perpetrators. So now, in the beginning, I asked this question: what does peace mean to you? So this child, he was released. He's one of the 700 children who were released from armed forces and groups in 2016. And we did have a conversation with this small child who was forced to take arms to fight against, the other groups because of the cycle of violence. And I started asking, like, what you want to become? And he was like, I wanted to become a teacher. And for him, peace means education, getting food, playing with friends. That is what peace means for him. The problem with conflict in any country is these children who were recruited, they sometimes go to this, sometimes they are forcefully recruited, sometimes they go to these armed forces or groups because they don't have any food, and when they offer a one meal, they go to these armed forces and they join these armed forces because of just for one meal or just to have food. And this, even if the cycle of violence continue, this recruitment or the joining of the armed forces and groups is also a cycle. It continues. So what I started asking, I did had a conversation with Anne Fringe about, we always have this discussion about what Rotary can support in peace in conflict countries. I know that there are Rotary clubs in South Sudan, but once the fighting starts, I think these clubs becomes inactive. Or when there's a active conflict going on, this clubs becomes inactive. So how can we make sure that these clubs are engaging in order to prevent the violence, or in order for conflict resolution? So again, the question, what Rotary can support in peace and conflict, how Rotary can support in peace and conflict countries. It can be either by funding for peace and civilian protection in conflict countries. Rotary clubs there are, I do know about the inter-country committees and the work the inter-country committees are doing in between India, Pakistan, and also between US, Russia. We have a very huge community, and how can we ensure that people are engaging with each other, or people are having this conversation with each other? And the third one is think big. I know there has been a lot of notion that the Rotary is a non-political, and we do not want to discuss about the political, or we do not want to take sides. But I think if we wanted to build peace, we need to engage with people. We need to engage with governments. We need to have multi-diplomacy. Because without engagement, there cannot be peace. We need to talk to each other, whether it be engaging with the government, whether it be engaging with the politicians, or whether it be engaging with community. And that is very important. And I believe that when we started looking at the differences, it's very difficult, but we start looking at the similarities or commonalities. That's where we can bridge this the conflict, or the differences that we have. As Rudy said, in 2018, I got a Rotary Peace Fellowship to do my second master's in policy. And I did my second master's from Duke University. And one of the reasons why I left my job with the United Nations and took up this prestigious Rotary Peace Fellowship was because I really wanted to support organizations and governments in coming up with good policies. While working in South Sudan, I have seen some certain policies which didn't have any which was not in tune with the realities on the ground. So I did want to utilize my experience in the field in terms of, engaging with people, or engaging with the government, or engaging with multilateral organization. I wanted to utilize it, or that experience, and get more skills on policy so that I can support organizations and governments in coming up with good policies. And my Rotary Peace Fellowship really did, help me a lot in building my skills. These are my, we have 10 Rotary Peace Fellows in every Rotary Peace Centers who are very, who have very, who have experience from, who are experienced in different fields and who have incredible experience in different countries. So in addition to, learning from the professors, you also learn from this other 9 Rotary Peace Fellows in terms of policy or in terms of program management and in terms of peace and conflict and all the other areas of 7 areas of Rotary's areas of focus. And during my Rotary Peace Fellowship, I did have the opportunity to work with the Special Representative to the Secretary General on Children and Armed Conflict. And I recently published a paper on inclusion of children's voices and children's issues in peace process, which I submitted to the UN as well, and that's only because I had this opportunity to be a Rotary Peace Fellow and to study in the Duke UNC Rotary Peace Center. That is about my conflict resolution and peace building work in South Sudan. After I finished my Rotary Peace Fellowship, before I finished in 2019 during the Rotary Peace Conference in Ontario, I happened to listen to Dr. Ira Helfand. He was a keynote speaker at the Rotary Peace Conference in Ontario, and he explained the horrific impact of nuclear in the event of a nuclear war, what will happen and how that there is no response mechanism in place. So that really kind of, had created an interest in me and inspired me to work on nuclear weapon issues. And I started working with Anne French, Richard, Dennis, and many others on nuclear weapon issues through the Rotary Action Group for Peace, and also through the other group within the Rotary. And as a result, I recently got an position as a director of Nuclear Ban.US. My organization is committed for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. And one of the reasons why I'm very much interested working for nuclear weapon issues is because in the event of, at the moment, there are more than 13,000 nuclear weapons with the 9 nuclear weapon countries. And if one of these nuclear weapons are used at the, 2 million, more than 2 million people will die from the blast. And 2 billion people will be pushed to starvation as a result of radiation, as a result of climate change, and as a result of a number of reasons. Last year, if you look into the ICANN report, more than 72.6 billion were used by 9 nuclear weapon countries for nuclear weapons. And this is when the COVID was hitting people badly, and several people died because of COVID. So governments were, investing on nuclear weapon, mass destructive nuclear weapon, and all this, information inspired me to work on nuclear weapon issues, especially on the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So what my organization does is we build support, political and public support for the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, either by getting the members of the Congress or by the state legislators to sign the ICANN pledge, and also by supporting a bill called HR 2850 at the federal. I am engaged a lot with building grassroots level movement and also engaging with the legislative and executive branch for a policy change in terms of nuclear weapons. This is the most recent, last week, I did have the opportunity to testify before the Massachusetts State legislature on a bill relating to the nuclear weapon, and it was my first time testifying before before a legislature. Now, what can we do as in order to eliminate nuclear weapon? The reason why I started working on nuclear weapon issues is because in South Sudan, I was mostly involved in responding after a conflict. And I wanted to change that one. I wanted to prevent a war from happening instead of waiting for it to happen and then to respond. So I started focusing on preventing rather than responding, because we should, in the case of nuclear weapon or nuclear weapon catastrophe, there is no way we can respond. There is no strategies available to respond, or there is no mechanisms to respond. So these are the methods my organization works for eliminating nuclear weapon, especially in the US. And to know more about my organization, you can go to nuclearban.us and learn more about the work that I'm currently doing. And I would like to open this, open a discussion about, as Rotarians, what can we do to build trust and relationship between people, and also for building peace. So I thought it's a good opportunity for us to, talk about how can we support, or how can we engage with people, or how can we build peace. How can we build relationship as a Rotary community? Because Rotary is everywhere and Rotarians are everywhere, and it's a huge community.
If you want to do a stop share, we'll have
yeah.
a few questions for you, Asha.
Yes.
There we go. I know we're coming to the about 10 minutes left here to wrap up, but thank you again. I'm not sure how many of us would have gone in the middle of a war zone like you. And what year was it that Warren wanted to know that you stayed in a bathroom for 3 days and 3 nights?
That was in 2016.
So that wasn't that long ago. So
no, that was just before I came to the US to do my second master's.
Yeah, this is, but we applaud you for your efforts over there, and certainly what I would think was putting your life on the line in a lot of cases, dealing with these conflicts to save women and children. So we applaud you for that. Arthur's got his hand up here. Arthur, a real short question.
Well, Asha, you're just incredible. And, you mentioned Rotary doing this around the world. You've, it seems like the question is nuclear, is the key to abolishing nuclear war really to abolish all war? And should we, as Shekhar urged us in the current Rotary magazine, dream big and really take on the elimination of war? What good is it just to eliminate one weapon if we're still doing all this insanity heading towards humanity's destruction? And were you part of the thing that Shekhar is doing tomorrow morning on Synergy is Energy?
I did got that email, and I will try to attend that meeting, the event that's happening tomorrow.
So do you see that as part of the key of actually the abolition of war, rather than just one war or one weapon or one system, to just really create a new way that we synergistically govern our world?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Asha, which district nominated you to be a Peace Fellow?
The Cochin district. I'm sorry, I forgot the number of that district.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's a Cochin district.
That's great. Was your family ever worried about you?
Yes, definitely. But they know that I am very stubborn, and I do. I know they're very. I mean, they know that I am very stubborn because my father always used to tell. I mean, he is one of the person who always influenced me. He always used to tell me, just being sympathetic. Just if you wanted to make a change, you need to take actions. That's what he always used to say. Just being sympathetic doesn't mean that you are going to change the world. So if you wanted to make a change, take action and take the responsibility and take it as your moral responsibility and do it. So.
Super. Jack, you have a real short question?
Sure. Asha, what's the relationship between HR 2850 or whatever that is, and the efforts to get the U.S. to sign the prohibition of nuclear weapons?
Yes, HR 2850 is a federal level bill that is introduced by Representative Norton to calling on the U.S. to sign, ratify the TPNW, which is a treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, and take leadership in eliminating nuclear weapons. As of now, I've been working with the members of the Congress in DC as well as in states as well. So what this bill, I do not think, I'm very realistic. I do not think that this bill is going to pass into a law, but it's a tool where we can have like a lot of discussions. We can raise the awareness of members of the Congress and the other legislatures on the threats of nuclear weapon, how much money is being invested on nuclear weapons. So it's a tool. As of now, like it is a tool, but in the future, I mean, she introduced this bill every single year. So in the future, I'm very optimistic that, US will sign and open an opportunity or door for discussion with the other 9 nuclear states. And I think it's not US alone, there are challenges in US alone eliminating all the nuclear weapons. But if US sign and open a door for multilateral discussions with the other 8 nuclear weapon countries, that itself is positive. So yeah. So
Okay.
engaging with the executive branch and the legislative branch.
Okay, thank you.
Sala, real short question if you have one.
I know there are some efforts, but are there more efforts to help people who are refugees or internally displaced to have skills so that they can go on with their life? Because a lot of times they're not going to be able to return and they've lost their culture. And what kinds of organizations are helping them create a new life?
In many of the IDP camps, a number of organizations are working in many of these IDP camps, kind of building the capacity of the members or the people in those refugee camps or in the IDP camps. So there are efforts happening in terms of like whether it be protection or whether it be providing shelter, providing food, or providing legal aid. So that is happening. And if I'm not wrong, Rotary clubs are supporting in South Sudan as well in peace projects. I do not have more details about those projects, but I do know that Rotary clubs from US are supporting in peace projects in South Sudan.
Okay, Mary Jo, you got the final question, then it's turned back to David.
So I wonder if, Asha, first, thank you very much. That was a brilliant presentation, and I have so many questions about Sudan, what your opinion was of the source of that conflict, etc. We didn't touch on that, but on nuclear, I'm just wondering, in your discussions, instead of aiming for what I'd call blue sky, is there ever a discussion of a more progressive series of proposals coming from Rotary? So sequencing into, first we should deal with this treaty, then the next step would be, is there a step-by-step discussion that you've ever heard or ever had with these advocates for a transition toward a less nuclear future? Because I feel as though the likelihood of no nuclear weapons in my lifetime is really zil. So I'm being blunt. But if we start moving toward mitigation, that's a different game. And it's possible to convince people to buy into that because there's a trust building that takes place. So I'm wondering if you've engaged in any discussions like that.
Yeah, I think I only have like 1 more minute. So I'll very quickly wrap up. I think I didn't, I missed to touch the root causes of conflict in South Sudan. I will quickly say it's, of course, power, resources, ethnic differences is only, I would say, like part of the reason for the conflict, but power and resources is a major reason for conflict. Also, external influence is another reason. Now coming to the Rotary and nuclear weapon issues. I know like Anne, Richard Dennis, and Ira, a lot other people have been working on this issue for so long, and I'm always inspired by their the work that they have been doing. One thing I think, Rotary, nuclear weapon is a business. We do have a lot of myth about nuclear weapon, that nuclear weapon is for the global security, it is for security of nations and countries, but it's a myth. And it helps in deterrent. I mean, it's for deterrence and all. It's a myth. On the other hand, like it is a business. It's a business of 72.6 billion in many countries. So how can Rotary or the Rotarians, invest in a socially responsible way? Many of the banks that invest money in nuclear weapon. I didn't know that Bank of America invest in nuclear weapon production, or they invest in nuclear weapons. I didn't know about it. So that is one way. Second is, how can we support the TPNW, which is a tool which we have, which helps to engage with all the 9 nuclear weapon countries in eliminating. And it needs kind of engagement of having that multilateral conversation between countries. And the other thing that I always think is there is a issue of trust between countries. I recently made a presentation before in one of the Rotary clubs, and one person keep telling me, we don't trust Russia. So how we as Rotarians or Rotary clubs can build that trust and relationship between people in 2 different countries. And the Intercountry Committee is doing a great job in that one. So these are like the things that came to my mind very quickly. But I think I have to stop it there because it's already.
Thank you, Asha. Very good. Very good. I'm going to turn this back over to a big hand here for Asha for all of her work and great presentation. And
outstanding.
Outstanding. Then back to you, David.
Well, fantastic. Well, 2 things. One is I just wanted to give a quick greetings and welcome to Tesfaye, who is a graduate, a Peace Fellow graduate from the University of Queensland, and she's from Ethiopia, and she's visiting with us. So thank you very much for being here with us. What you heard is really a powerful example of this is the E-Club of world peace. And sometimes, we just say the word, but it's like, take that in, because this is an amazing experience that you shared with us, Asha, someone who's deeply committed and really, put your life on the line in many, many ways, which is incredible. Along this line, we are engaged in many different ways. We have projects, initiatives. Please contact, many of you contacted to have some conversations, please do so. And I wanted to make a special announcement about Thursday, August 5th. Asha and Julie Boswell are our Rotary Foundation co-chairs, and they are putting together this wonderful special event with Marty Hellman. And she is the person working with Rotary Foundation who brought in $15.5 million for the next peace center in the Mideast, North Africa. She's going to be here to talk about this, but this is also a fundraising. And one way that we can engage with supporting this work is through donation, through fundraising. So please join us this message was sent out, but Asha and Julie have done a tremendous job of bringing this program together. But again, this is another way to support the peace building work of the world, of the E-Club of World Peace. So thank you very much. Thank you, Asha. Outstanding. Good night for now. See you next week.
Thanks, Sasha. That was excellent.
Thanks, Asha. And thank you, Tesfaye, for joining us.
Thank you.